So today's ghost story is called A Voice in the Night. And this story comes from my family, just like all the other ones. Um, but it's a short story, but I think it's a good one. And I think it's probably one of the scariest things. I'm going to move my setup here a little bit. That could possibly happen to someone. Okay, so the story goes, and the green screen doesn't recognize my wispies today. Yeah. Anyway, so the story goes is that my brother, he was a teenager at the time, and at this point in our lives, we lived pretty far out in the country. So at night, there wasn't like houses around us, street lights, things like that. It was just woods. And according to my brother, we had all went to bed, and it was quiet, and he was in the basement of the house, which was kind of like there wasn't a garage. So that was kind of like my dad's garage area. So he was in the garage or basement working, and he said that it was super quiet outside, super late at night, and he heard a voice whisper his name. And he said that he like initially thought, oh, my dad's, our dad's probably like, why are you up so late? So he said he went out to like the door and he looked and there was no one there. So he said he thought, okay, it was just the music or something like that. So he turned the music down, just went back to work. And my brother's a guy who like definitely likes to just work on things, whether it be, like anything that you can think of that is like an outside tool. So he was probably just like, mindlessly working on like a lawnmower or something, like that. So he said he thought, okay, it must have just been part of the music I'm listening to. So he turned the music down, went back to work. And he said that a little while later, he heard it again, very distinctly. It said his name. And at this point, he said he was like, okay, like someone said my name. So he said he went into the house and he looked around just to kind of make sure. And the house was really small. It was just a really small 3-bedroom house. So he said that but we're talking like a very small 3-bedroom house, all one level. And he said that he went inside and he thought, okay, I'm going to check and make sure everyone's asleep. And this is going to have to be a 2-part, sorry. And indeed, we were all asleep, mom, dad, me, and our little brother. So he said he went back outside because he had to clean up what he was doing. He didn't want to be in trouble for leaving lights on, doors open, and all that. All right, part 2. Okay, part 2. Voice in the night, I think is what I called this one. Okay, so he said he went back in. Yes, we were all asleep. And he went back outside because, like I said, he didn't want to be in trouble for leaving like lights on and tools out and like all that stuff because my dad probably would have been upset about that. So he goes back outside and starts cleaning up the mess. And he said it happened again, said his name again. And he said he couldn't determine if the voice was male or female or but he said it kind of sounded like a man, and it was, just firmly saying his name. And he said it happened multiple times until he cleaned up the mess. It gives me goosebumps when I talk about it. Until he cleaned up the mess and went into the house. And he said the next morning, he just mentioned it to my dad, and my dad just brushed it under the rug, which in most of the stories that I talk about that come from my family did just brush stuff on, by. They were just like, whatever. I don't know if they were just so used to paranormal events that they just had like a tolerance to it. I don't know, but no one was ever shocked by anything that ever happened to us. They would just be like, okay. Which looking back on that now as an adult, I'm like, really? Like, shouldn't we have maybe sat down and talked about this? But yeah, to this day, my brother still says that it was very real and that it did happen and that he was scared. He was a teenager at the time, but he said even as a grown man, if he's outside at night, he thinks about that. Or if he's in his garage at night, he thinks about the time that basically the mountains or the woods, whatever. We lived in East Tennessee at the time. It knew his name. So one part of this that I think is kind of interesting is I'm constantly seeing like rules for if you live in the mountains of East Tennessee on TikTok. And it's like, don't go outside at night. If something calls your name, don't answer it, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's super weird that, we didn't know about any of that back then. And this happened to my brother. So there's some truth in that. Ooh, it still gives me goosebumps. That's it.